So here we are, Wavedash 14. Something I wanted to do for a long, long time is gather up some OG London Tekken heads, and finally. So I guess let me just introduce everyone. We have long-time podcast member, Dinosaur.
Hey, what's up? Anyone who's listened to the podcast will know me. I play Brian. I am an old-school UK Tekken player, but not by the standards of the absolute fossils to my right.
Dinosaur,
these guys
on my screen and in the screens of everyone who's watching, it's the other way.
Reminds me of Scott Hall when he used to do that, and then we'd have to wait for who's going to come out. Oh yeah, it was like that, isn't it?
And
hey everyone, I'm Ryan Hart. I was on one of the Wavedash podcasts before with a very talented mixed bag. And yeah, you guys, it's getting late, man. If you guys don't know who I am, then I've been playing Tekken for a very long time, very passionate FGC member. And you should, check out my matches on YouTube and wherever else they live. So yeah, I'm happy to be here, guys. Really am. Looking forward to it.
Good to have you here, man. And the one and only Starscream.
Yes. Last but not least, I'm Starscream, UK Starscream. Another OG Tekken player, playing since Tekken Tag 1. So I'm accustomed to these guys, my left, right, up, down, wherever they're sitting on your screens. Happy to be here as well.
Yeah, and these guys are true OGs. I mean, you guys have been playing competitively Tekken since like Tekken 3, right? Or Tekken Tag 1 in Starscream's case. I mean, Ryan, you started with 2? 1? 2?
I played Tekken 1 in the arcades, and then Tekken 2 was when it became competitive.
Did Tekken 2 even have a competitive scene? I mean,
Tekken 2 had a national championship. That was the first time I ever placed in a tournament. I got fourth place at nationals. I got battered by the top 3. They were way better than me, so I was happy with fourth. I was really happy.
I've never even heard of like a Tekken 2 meta. Like,
you ain't spoken to me, innit? Oh. Tekken 2 had bear tactics. It was a skank game. It was ridiculous. Like characters could do 70-80% one beam. Like it was a skank game. But and you have to bear in mind as well, special throws couldn't be teched. Like if King did giant swing, you're eating 70% damage. There's no tech roll to save you. The game didn't have tech roll period in it, so you couldn't tech throws that were special grabs. You could only tech the generic left and right ones. And throws that you can tech roll after getting hit by them, you couldn't because the game didn't have tech roll till Tekken 3. So special grabs were a massive part of the meta on Tekken 2 because you knew it forced a crouch or it forced you to try and interrupt with buttons, and then you could do stuff like about that. So yeah, massive part of the meta.
What was the tier list for Tekken 2? Like who was up there?
I don't even think, because from my recollection, Armor King was a thief. Heihachi was a thief. Because I think, you know what? There were a lot of really strong characters. It wasn't like, these 3 are better than way better than everyone else. It was just, in the arcades, like, everyone was really good. But also back then, it was a lot to do with, how well you knew the characters, because you could get away with stuff when people didn't know all the blocks of the 10 string or just like whatever, right? So yeah. But the game was pretty cutthroat, to be honest. King was definitely up there. 5 throws, a lot of damage. If you didn't know the escapes, then, like you're dead, basically. Mm-hmm. But yeah, characters like Bruce were really good as well. He had a multi-throw of his own, and he had really good normals. So yeah, there was a lot of top characters, though. It's definitely hard to like pinpoint, these guys won everything. No, it wasn't. The national championship was won by a King player, and the second was a Michelle player. And the third, Armor King. Michelle was a crook on that game. Michelle Chang. Behind bars is where she belongs.
Well, the Changs have always been good. I mean,
yeah, she was on Tekken 2, man. Oh my days, ridiculous. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of got into Tekken competitively with Tekken 5. I mean, I was just kind of, playing around at home, like, casual stuff until then. And then I kind of started learning Tekken from you guys. So, down at Casino, down at Troc. So I guess we're going to take a trip down memory lane, and Dino has kindly written up like a sort of a timeline here for us to go through. And starting with Tag 1, which is the earliest memories of each other, and Casino, and Ryan's early dominance in the UK.
Yeah, because I was just thinking, like, yeah, the best way we can do this is like the stuff that we were all here for, like, and I include like Cobra Commander in this as well, because she couldn't be here today, but because there are like, you know, Tekken 3 it was only really Ryan, sort of Tekken Tag 2 and beyond, you know, we started, like, Ryan moved to Germany, like we weren't, like, people weren't playing perhaps quite as much as they used to be. So yeah, I thought we start with like the beginning, like when we all were all sort of started out, was Tag 1, where I wasn't very good. And I basically, it was a long time before, like, from my perspective, like, I came into Casino just on Saturdays, and everyone else was already like quite a long way beyond me. And also as like, I remember like coming in one time and I was seeing this guy and he was playing like Mishimas. It was like this black guy sitting at the arcade, yeah, and he was playing Mishimas, just banging people up. And I'd heard that like the best Tekken player in the UK, he was this guy called Ryan Hart. And so I saw this guy, and he could do like all these combos, like he could do Jin's Hell Sweep into 3-ring circus into forward forward 2, and like incredible combos like that. And it's like, shit, that's really good.
Top level.
It's like
Top notch.
Is that Ryan Hart? Someone. Like, that's some other guy, and it was Starscream, and I never got over that disappointment. Like, I never got over the disappointment of like the shock of like thinking that Eddie was good.
The thing is, I've played Dinosaur so much in Tekken. I saw that setup coming. I know your setup.
Proper idiot. Proper.
Oh no! Oh, Dino.
Most
people mature when they get older. This guy doesn't.
It's their mental decline, bro. Button business, bro. Yeah,
no.
Oh man.
Oh no.
Man said it was Ezzy, you know. Allow it. Allow it. Their glory got taken away in one sentence, bro.
That was just like, because Tekken is a game about getting your heart broken in a lot of ways, and that was just the first heartbreak.
The first step.
Thinking that Ezzy,
you were never
thinking that Ezzy was going to be good.
Oh man, get some water after that,
Starscream, he was also like the first like one of the good players that I beat in that game, because I remember I had one combo I played Hwoarang King, and all I did was skyrocket tagged out into King's unblockable clothesline. I just managed to like burgle like 3 rounds with this, and of course some obnoxious other guy was in the background just screaming his head off. Some guy wearing like some other like black guy wearing an anime jacket like covered in cartoon characters, who unfortunately can't be with us today.
That star.
Oh no.
Oh man.
That's an interesting. So that's your earliest memories. Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I can share mine.
Introduction. Yeah.
I sort of remember. So we used to have a program called Games Master, which used to come on TV here in the UK, and they had some challenge one time on Tekken 2, where the idea was, I think they gave some guys like a day or so, and the idea was they had to impress the Games Master with things that they could do in the game.
Yeah.
And one guy picked Lei, some guy picked Nina, one guy picked King, and they were just doing things like they had Lei's down back 4-4, because these were just very unique moves. No games had anything like that at the time, so they were just doing this. And this one guy picked King, so I didn't know anything about Tekken at this time. This one guy picked King, and he did a King's 5-throw combo, and I remember seeing that and thinking, how is that even possible to do in a game? Because I used to play Street Fighter back then, and like the most complicated throw was like Zangief's spinning power driver. So I'm seeing King do all of this. I was so intrigued about what was going on. So that sort of started my interest. And then the magazine came out called CVG, I think it was, Computer Video Games. And this is when Tekken 3 came out. And it had a massive guide for all the characters. So that was what took me into the arcades with that game. But I wasn't competitive. This is Tekken 3, so I'm just learning the moves. Eventually, fast forward, Tekken Tag came out. And I remember going down to, I think it's called Play to Win in central London somewhere. And I remember playing, and I used to use, it was like King and Zhao Yu back then. Mm. And I met another black guy. I mean, infinite black guys in London playing Tekken. I met another black guy. His name was JRX. And he said to me, so at this time I learned King's multi-throw combo. So I'm doing it, and there's a little crowd going behind me, just watching me play the computer, doing all this. And I'm feeling myself in it. Yeah, everyone's watching. And JRX is standing in the background and asking to challenge me, and he says no. And in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, I won't want to challenge me either. That's how sick I look. Anyway, so I completed the game, and then he put his money in and said, do I want to challenge him? And I was thinking, what kind of weirdness is that? Like, I was on the machine, and you wouldn't want to challenge. And he used Julia, so I wanted to watch him. And I'm watching him use Julia, and he looks so rubbish. Like, he looks so rubbish. So I thought, you know what? Let me just challenge this guy and get him in all of these 5-throw combos. And the guy absolutely obliterated me. Wasn't he? Like, he just battered me, and I couldn't, my ego wouldn't have it. So I kept on, I think I lost about 10 or 15 pounds at the time, just pumping money into this machine, trying to beat this guy, and I couldn't get rounds off him. But he wasn't doing anything fancy. And I think it was my ego. He said to me, oh, you know, you're quite good. You should come back on Friday. You know, there's a scene, you should come back on Friday. So then I came back on the Friday, and that's when I met majority of the other players at the time. So that's what grasped me into the scene, the competitive scene.
Oh, Tekken Tag 1. Oh, man. I mean, my earliest memory of that game was when there was a beta version in Namco Wonder Park way back. You know, this is when Tekken 3 was still alive, and it was weird. Like, what? There's two characters? When one dies, the round's over? Why doesn't my other character come in and take over, you know? And so we didn't really I didn't really like Tekken Tag 1. I didn't like the design. I didn't like the structure of how, you know, the game plays. And, you know, eventually, yeah, Play to Win Oxford Street, Las Vegas in Soho. There were a few arcades dotted around London that got Tekken Tag. And I do remember that same day that Ezzy's talking about, where we met at Play to Win. And it was JRX, Ezzy, and there were a couple of I think Shinjin might have been there. I think even very early appearance of Saki Anan as well, AC. And I do think there was quite a mixed bunch of players there. I saw Ezzy get mash up, but yeah. After that, I didn't play. I tried to play at Play to Win, but I didn't like the joysticks. I couldn't use the sticks. But yeah, it was this question of like, who's gonna, you know, this is all great, but who's coming on Friday? And you know, Friday is where we will congregate at Casino, which is where, you know, all the best players get together. And yeah, it was always a Friday thing. I think that as long as we knew that everyone could meet on Fridays at Casino, we just, like, the numbers kept growing. I remember there were nights where there was, I don't know, anything from 30 to 50 players, depending on who came down. You know, sometimes players came from Nottingham or Manchester, or I think even Tony T came from Australia. Like, it was just crazy. You could have visitors from almost anywhere in the world. And it was such a great community that we all shared.
Ryan, I don't understand. Like, you said you didn't like the sticks. You are the one person I have seen who can play on any stick, no matter how, like, honestly, you could walk. There have been like multiple times when we've gone to places where the sticks have been completely unusable.
Yeah.
Like, because this is one of the things you encounter, like, you don't encounter anymore. As like, it went out with the arcade days, is that you would just come somewhere and the controls would be wrecked.
Yeah,
but, like, you'd come up to some place and like the stick would be just like flopping over if no one touched it, and then Ryan would just sit down. He'll just be like,
and start godfist,
and then just go straight down across the screen. You're like, what are you doing, Ryan?
I remember. I mean, I think I didn't like it. I could probably still do some of the stuff, but I just probably didn't feel comfortable on it. I don't remember exactly, but I just remember not playing as much as everyone. I remember watching a lot because I didn't want to play on those sticks. But yeah, I probably still was able to do some stuff. But yeah, I think
Could be other times when you'd come down and where you'd like find another stick and it'd be like, just like, all right, left, right, and you're just trying to move it around. Then Ryan will sit down and be like, just wave that thing across the screen again. It's like,
to be fair, I remember that.
Ryan can play on
It was quite frustrating.
Ryan can play on any
stick.
Yeah,
any stick.
any stick.
I had no idea this was the narrative around me. I had no idea.
Yes, you did. We said it to you.
I know.
Wavedash on keyboard. It was ridiculous.
Do you remember the sticks on that T5 machine in the Trocadero? Like how stiff they were? Like I remember they kept biting your fingers. Like
T5? Oh,
yeah, 5.0
in the corner. Oh, that was horrible, man. Yeah, blisters all day. That
torture sticks, torture sticks.
Yeah. They kept nipping at your fingers, like the flesh, like this part right here. Like anytime anyone came off that machine, they had like these little like bite marks from the stick.
Tekken 5. Oh yeah, you go ahead.
Yeah, but it was for me. I found it really. It was a bad genesis to stick because that's where I learned my Wavedash on the casino sticks and how stiff they were.
Yeah. And
what it meant was that for me to play comfortably on stick, I needed something as stiff as that. So it sort of really limited my gameplay because I could only really play to my max potential in casino. At home, I use pad. Any other place, any other arcade we'd go to, if the sticks were nothing like casino, I really, really struggled to reach my full potential. So it was one of the things that, but at casino, I always felt way like I was really comfortable. Everywhere else, nah.
I know why. I also know why Gordon didn't challenge you that first day.
Because of the stick. Well.
And because of player side.
Yeah, you were on his side. Yeah. As soon as Dino said that, it clicked. Yeah. Because I know it was Arms House for the side. It was Arms.
Yeah. Everyone wanted that player two side. Everyone wanted that player two side. And because I was on that side, exactly, 100%. And then when he put his money in, he picked that side and asked me to challenge him. And I was just thinking, look at this jabroni.
Smart man.
How does that make sense? And then I see just £15 off me. It was crazy.
Oh, man.
Didn't they move that cabinet to casino later? Wasn't it the same one? They like changed the sticks and they converted it to DR? Like the same sit-down cabinet, or am I remembering incorrectly? Like,
I'm not sure if it was the same one from Play to Win. But there was, or was it from Namco? Because the Play to Win ones were standing machines.
Yeah.
I think there were machines where you stand, and the casino ones were the ones where you sat down.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were different. The Play to Win ones were definitely different. I think they were constantly recycled, weren't they? Between like Play to Win, Las Vegas, like that. Yeah, I remember that. I remember going to Las Vegas and seeing the same cabinet. It wasn't a Play to Win anymore. So
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, like so. The basic dynamic back in the tag days was, at least in casino, was Ryan, who basically no one could beat him. And there was Shinjin, who was an ogre player, but he couldn't beat a guy called Saki, and he struggled with Martin, Cobra Commander. And there was Starscream, who... Wait a minute. Is the war with the character select screen older than I've named it as being? It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I was like, the war with the character select screen. I was thinking that it started in Tekken 5. I mean, in Tekken 4, but it started in tag. It's always been your greatest battle.
Yeah. I think it got really bad in Tekken 4, but it started in Tekken.
Oh, yeah, it was horrible in Tekken 4.
Oh, yeah, it was hard.
We'll get to that. Finish your story, Dino.
But yeah, so yeah, Starscream would bang up Martin, like Cobra Commander, and probably like Saki as well, but he was like he just jumped around the character select screen too much and like didn't have a character that he played, so he wasn't consistent enough. But yeah, so mainly like Ryan would bang everyone up, and like the same was true for like most of Europe until the Italy rivalries, right? That was the first time that like Ryan actually challenged.
I remember. I mean, because what happened was this was exactly the Tekken Tag 1 sort of mid days. You know, it wasn't too early, but it definitely wasn't the latter stages. The Italians came over. You know, they came for an arcade Tekken Tag European tournament, right?
And we didn't know who they were. You know, I had met Sandra because Sandra is actually super, super old school. And I've been playing Tekken since the Tekken 3 days with Sandra. I've been playing Tekken with Sandra longer than I've been playing with either of you, which is quite a statement, right? Because he wasn't from the UK. But he was studying in the UK, in central London. Oh, he was just here, like, working. He worked in a restaurant and that. And he played Ling on the Tekken 3 cabs in Namco Wonder Park, you know, back in the late 90s. So, definitely super, super old school. But anyway, he brought the entire force for this Tekken Tag tournament. And there was Wonder Boy, there was Yatajin. Remember Yatajin? Red King. There was Evil Dice. All the names, right? They, you know, eventually become our friends, basically. But they battered us. They battered all of us, and it wasn't close. It wasn't close games where you just getting, you know, out-clutched. There was no contest. Now, back in that time, there was a Korean guy that was also living in the UK called Bong Bong. And he was probably the best Tekken Tag player at the time because he started on Tekken 3 in the UK anyway. I remember getting a phone call and someone told me, there's a guy here at the arcade and he's doing some weird movement. I've never seen it before. And I was like, explain it. Like, how is he moving? Which character? I don't know. He's using Jin, and when he moves, I just can't block. Somehow he just starts his movement, and wherever he does, I just get hit. And I was like, what? And when you've never seen something that you're hearing described, you don't know what to process in your brain. I'm just on the phone like, what? Some move? Like, what? I know the entire command list of Jin. What movement is there? Like, I know all the moves. So, like, what are you talking about? He's like, Ryan, you've got to come down. He's got 40 wins. When he said he's got 40 wins, I got straight on the bus and I went down to Central. And that was the intro of Wavedash in my life, Tekken 3. I'd never seen this movement in my life. Did not know what was going on. Round one start, because there was some hype. You know, I just, as soon as I arrived at the arcade, I just followed the noise. And when I saw the noise, I just went over to the massive crowd. And they were like, oh, Ryan's here, let Ryan play. And then they like kind of ejected me to the front of the queue and, you know, said, yeah, Ryan's next. So I sat down. I was maining Paul Phoenix at the time. This dude starts the round with 3 wave dashes into while standing 2, and I get counter here. And everyone's like, ooh, you know? so they pushed me to the front of the queue just to enjoy me get murked. Like, it wasn't this champion thing. It was like, I was the champion, but they just wanted to see, because think about it. They've been getting blown up for 40 whatever wins, right? So now they need to see me get murked to feel okay about it. That's basically what was going down. I thought I had supporters. I thought I had, yeah, man, I've got your back, guys. I got just murked. Like, what? So we played a few games. He won the first like 5 or 6 games straight, and then I pulled one back. And then eventually, as time grew on, the queue behind got smaller, and the game difference got a bit more even. But after the entire set, I learned that wow, Wavedash is super, super deadly, and that was the inception of Wavedash in my life. And then, so Bong Bong was also there. You know, Bong Bong became the most dominant player. You know, he used to win a lot of the UK tournaments. He was always a threat for me. Like, we would go back and forth in tournaments as well. And he'd spend a lot of weekends at my house. He actually came to my house, and the first time he ever visited, he walked in the front door, walked into the kitchen without knowing where anything in the house is, and just opened the fridge and broke the egg holder. I don't know what was in his brain. I don't know what was going on. There was no introduction. There was no verbalizing of his, you know, incoming actions. But he walked in my house, turned right, opened the fridge door, and broke the egg holder. I don't know what that was about.
Bro, there's a gin there, but
anyway, the Italians battered him as well. So they battered me, they battered all of the UK scene, and they battered him, which was massive at the time. The Italians had mastered how to use the sidestep. We weren't that into sidestep. We were still, for the most part, playing 2D Tekken. I'll be honest. You know, we had great execution. We knew we knew like the reads. We were great mentally, but the sidestepping, no, we weren't that. We didn't know how potent sidestepping was in TTT1 as well, because it wasn't as good in Tekken 3. It was good, but it was nowhere near the quality of the Tekken Tag 1 sidestep. So we just weren't used to it. And they just battered us with sidestep 1, 1, 2. It sounds so bad, but that's kind of how they battered us.
They were cheating, right?
You say cheating. I remember that back in those days, you could you can button bind sidestep. So you had a button where you could execute sidestep. So you could do it out of crouch, which, I mean, I think they've taken it out now. But I remember there being big arguments about whether it was actually cheating or not, because you could cancel stuff with that with having a single button sidestep. I remember it was sidestep 112. Yatijin is the guy that came to mind because he just had a button that he could use access. So, accessing sidestep at the quickest possible frames. And it felt, I mean, it sounds silly now, but it felt it felt overwhelming to me.
It is teeth. Like, it is much better than normal sidestep. Like, the whole dominance of, like, the Tekken 4 sidestep game is due to the fact that it starts in one frame. The whole, like Eddie is the only character in Tekken Tag 1 that without cheating can sidestep with a button. And it's incredibly good. He doesn't travel very far. He doesn't travel further. Like, Ogre and Armor King travel further than him, for example. But sidestepping sidestepping instantly means he can just go around stuff. Like, he can just sidestep out of, like, Bruce's knees or whatever. You can just sidestep after the first hit because he does it instantaneously. But when the Italians did it with the buttons, you could do that every time, and you could do it with the biggest sidestep in the game. You could do it with, like, Ogre or Armor King or whatever.
And sorry, like, just to take it,
you could do it from crouch, obviously.
Yeah, it was the crouch cancel. It was the crouch cancel, which was bad. Just to take it back just a little, just slightly. Ryan, you were saying Bong Bong was the first person that you saw using the Wavedash. Now, I can't remember what tournament it was. Maybe you remember, where there was a Korean guy, I think his name was Soek, where he won a massive tournament in...
Seok.
Is it Seok?
Yeah.
He won a massive tournament. He won a massive tournament in America. And I think that was the first time they'd seen things like the Wavedash. And I remember there being... Back to you at the time. I remember there being conversations and us being the UK getting dissed when we said, we've got people that do that in the UK. And they were like, no, it's Korean, no one's ever seen it before. Whereas like Tekken Tag, yourself, Amaraj, Bong Bong were using the Wavedash. So it wasn't as novel to us because it was something that was happening in the UK at the time.
I mean, I think, just in general, there was a lot of, there wasn't a way of knowing what's happening in other communities. Like, the Americans literally didn't know how we play, for example, and vice versa. So, I remember downloading matches on FTPs trying to find out who's the best. And, there was no YouTube and all the stuff that we have now. So when they said, like, no, it's Korean, you guys don't know what you're talking about, they probably just didn't know that we have, like, oh, there's a Korean guy that we have here that's really good, and he's, like, shown us all these things, So I think that, because when I went there in 2001 for Electric Cancel, when I went there, they all got blown up by Mishima mix-ups. They were so unfamiliar. They had players that used Mishimas. They had good Tekken players that used Mishimas. But they weren't using the stuff. They weren't using the Wavedash properly. They weren't using the cancels. They weren't using the tech catches. They weren't doing the stuff that make Mishimas really excel in Tekken Tag 1. So I just, it was, it was nice to have, like, that experience of, having worked really hard and seeing that pay off when you visit a new community, because that's basically, you were those players at one point of time. Those players that you're winning against. I was worse than those players even, so it was kind of like confirmation that, this is an effective way to play, this is, because that can happen. You can go to a new community and you just get battered. So but back in 2001, 2003, I kind of introduced Wavedashing style of Mishimas to North America.
I think it's kind of incomprehensible for a lot of our viewers to think of a world without YouTube, without internet, where you find out about Wavedashing on the phone. But this, like, it's not so long ago. I mean, it is long ago, but it's just to think of the generational leap between, like, how we played video games 20 years ago compared to now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of tools, programs, just the internet just helps players now access combos, strategies, whereas before you had to grind. You take it to the arcade, and it was very empirical how you had to get your characters to where they needed to be. It was through actually taking them, spending the money and seeing whether this thing worked. You take it back home, you try some two things, but it was in the arcades where you'd try and work out what your max damage is, what combos work in what situations and things like that. Which, as you're saying, is testimony to where we are now. I mean, you're saying FTPs. I think it was Maxi, the Swedish LD Maxi, the Swedish player at the time, who was managing the FTP. And for us, that was the only place you could get to see anything internationally. FTPs or a very bad link on Daily Motion somewhere or something like that. But yeah, the video footage wasn't as accessible as it is nowadays.
I remember the first time I downloaded a match from the arcade called Fantasia, the South Korean arcade. And I was just getting into Mishimas at the time, and I was basically shown the way by this Korean guy who kind of taught me, like, this is how good Wavedash is, and these are the mix-ups and so on. And I loaded up this Fantasia video, and I think it was like Jang Iksu versus like Park or something. Remember that was the beef, right? Those two. And it was like, this is not possible. Like, I've learned the mix-ups, like I know, but the speed they were doing things at, and with the accuracy, and everything was just so pinpoint and so like remarkably accurate. How long do you need to train to get to that level of precision with every single thing? And it was just amazing the way they, it was just a marvel to watch them, really. And I think you appreciate even more when you can use Mishimas a little bit yourself, because you know what's going on and you know why you can't do those things, Yeah. So, but yeah, that definitely blew my mind the first time. You remember Steve went to Korea, and I remember being super jealous. I couldn't afford to go somewhere like Korea back then, and I was just thinking, man, I'm so jealous. But he brought back a VHS tape with all these Fantasia matches, and that was a crazy experience to see that.
It's bedroom champion syndrome, where within your walls you think, I know it all. I'm the greatest. Yeah. And then when you see something external, like it's so enlightening. It's so like you just it's like it's a wake up call. You realize whatever I thought I knew, there's so much more. And it's good though. I think that's testimony to the game, because I saw those matches as well, and I saw there was Aaron Dye and all these players. And I used to watch matches that these guys are playing in where they're even playing with each other. They're not finishing combos; they're doing combos. Like just to play with each other. And even how they played looked OP. It looked so. I'm like, how are you doing that? And you're playing like that. That's, to me, that's a level of concentration. That's a level of seriousness. But these guys are playing with each other, like, and I think that. At the time, for me, when I saw that, it was really inspiring. It's like I want to get to that level. I want to be able to play like that. You want to mimic it. You want to ingest that kind of play. But yeah, I mean, for us at the time, there was no one playing like that. Or at least for me, because I'm talking Tekken tag days now. I felt I couldn't achieve that, especially I wasn't really a Mishima player. I mean, I'd use Heihachi, but I couldn't get the Wavedash. Like, there was so much that game offered. And it feels like such a steep climb now. And I'm wondering now how a new player would come on and learn all of that, because the game's very different. You had little things in that game where you had things called like Tembler, where if someone's upside down in the air and you hit them close to the ground, then the person can't tech roll and they have guaranteed hits. And little things like that I know it now, but at the time, these are the things that you had to learn. Whereas I don't think Tembler exists now in
sort of does. It's sort of
to a degree.
Tekken 7, it sort of got it. It's the Tekken 7 is the only game where it's sort of come back.
It's a bit different now.
But it's different. Yeah, it's different. So I remember just learning all those little things, what it meant to be juggled face down, how it affects the way they fall, all these kind of little things that sort of made up, that gave Tekken little notches and little depths of gameplay.
Yeah, there's all these unique areas to express knowledge as well. Like, do you know how to end this kind of combo? The end of, like, here Jin gets the guaranteed back four on the ground because he can't take and stuff like that. So yeah, that was really cool because players would come down and you'd almost be mentally testing them as you watch them. Like, but does he know? does he know here you got to do this now? You know, and he'll end it properly. You'll be like, all right, scene, he knows the thing. So yeah, I appreciated that these, you know, a lot of these older games specifically had areas where you could be unique. You know, there could be a way that you do a certain thing. I think nowadays it's getting a bit more, you know, there's like a template on how you play the character optimally, and that's that. There's not really much more outside of just this generic flowchart style. Whereas on that game, you could have 50 Jin players, but they would all have their own unique quirks and touches, and, you know, they'd all have different speeds. They'd all have different kinds of execution. They'd all have different reads, like so many areas of uniqueness, you know, and I think that is just like looking back, if I was to try and compare the difference, maybe that's also a Mishima thing as well, though, because Mishimas just have a lot in general, right? So you can vary your stuff. I felt like in general, because of the way the game's movement was based, I think it was, you know, there were ways to be more ways to be super unique.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that's solely Mishimas. I think you could watch, as you said, 10 different Jin players, and there'll be 10 very, very different unique styles. You could watch 10 different powerings, and they'd be very different, 10 different Changs. Although they all have access to the same moves, maybe the movement or maybe the choice of moves that they use at that specific time. And I think you're right. Yeah. I think now that's sort of missing now, that there is a bit of a template, that there is still, you still do have specialists where it's like, yeah, that's this guy's Jin, or that's this guy's Steve. But outside that, everyone else seems to fall into the same sort of either moveset or into the same. They're not so unique.
I think when people are different, when people are unique, it's often people talk about the movement. People often say, "Oh, the way he moves," you know, like it's. I think that's one area where you can obviously still be super unique. But yeah, when I hear people talked about, you know, like Tekken 7, one of the first things that comes up is always like, "Oh, you should see how he moves." Like Iwa, you should see how he moves. It's Dragunov sick, like the movement. You know, like it's not actually about the character's moves or where they do certain things. It's like, but the movement is sick. The backdash is OD. Like, you know, like it's things to do with movement. So I think only when it comes to Mishimas, or maybe like, I don't know, Tonji Upper and stuff like people then kind of go into more the execution category. But yeah, for the most part, I often hear a lot about, you know, appreciating players for their movement.
It's the most flexible part of the game, the part where you can really imprint yourself, express yourself. I mean, a move is a move. It's an animation. It's a set, you know, it's a set animation. You can't change how it goes. But yeah, I think you're right. The hand of the developer is becoming stronger and stronger in kind of the modern era of fighting games. You can really feel it. But kind of
I think a lot of the I think a lot of the sort of the homogenization of playstyle is just that, like, it's the amount of media that's out there. Like, because now everyone just learns what the optimal thing is to do from watching videos. Like, even the Maxi FTP, I think, even that was only like a late Tekken Tag era thing, really. I think actually Maxi started it up maybe in the Tekken 4 era, maybe even later than that. It might even have been later than that. It might even have been Tekken 5, but that was the first, like, proper video resource. So, like I said, everything was like transmitted over the phone or through the arcade or through someone you'd seen or someone you'd met. Everything was made by one guy. So you had lots of, like, it was a lot more separate ecosystems rather than, you can still have that happening nowadays, but it has to be when something isn't being seen, like Pakistan and Akuma, for example. Like,
like, sense of discovery is still there. I thought that was gone, actually. But
it's still there. But the level, like, to which ecosystems are interconnected is really high now, and there's tons of information going back and forth, like mostly like visual and matches. So people are just, there's less like having to discover it yourself, basically, which is what all we had to do. Like, I had tag, like I had PAL Tekken Tag, which was like Scuba Tekken. My version, and I only got that relatively late. I learned Tekken Tag almost entirely in the arcades. Like, I didn't get a console until I'd been playing, like, in Casino for like a couple of years, I think. But yeah, like I said, so what happened? Yeah, we had the Euro tournaments. So which ones were the big ones? So there were two major Euro tournaments that you and Shinjin won, right?
So yeah, there was Euro 3, Euro 4. There was Euro. Oh my God, there were 5. So there was Euro 2, 3, 4, and 5, right? Euro 1 was held at MG's house. A guy called MG. I think that was that Tekken 3, and then Euro 2 was the first Tekken Tag one. And I've got some super old photographs of like Starscream and a couple of the other guys there as well. And then Euro 3 was the one when the Italian invasion, when they beat everybody. And they won both days. It was like a 2-day weekend thing, and then they won both. Yasujin won day 1, and Wonderboy won day 2, beat me in the finals. And then Euro 4 is when we then took it to them. We all traveled. We went like 25 of us. The Chosen One, Adam, U2, Martin, Amraj, Wing. Who else was there? There was just so many players. Khalid, Saki, and I can't remember if everyone won, but I remember us having like this army of players just there. And then we won both the arcade. I won that, and then Shinjin won the console one. And I think that Shinjin console win was probably the biggest like European Tekken Tag. Where literally like every sick player from Europe was in the tournament. I think that was probably one of the biggest tournaments.
Yeah, that was a really weird tournament as well, because like Cassandro had an incredibly strange team, because he played Ling and Lee, which is not a particularly strong tag team, like on paper, but he was incredibly good with them. Like
he was
legitimately really, really good with them. But he, think as far as I remember, like he beat Ryan, and then like Geordie, Geordie, who was like Reddy Hokuto, he just played some really dry Mishima team, and he just beat Sandro just by like waiting. He just played like Devil, and I just remember seeing like what's going on, but he's not as good as Sandro. What's going on? Why is he just losing to waiting and like Godfist? And then like
he had that weird
he went into the finals and played Shinjin. And like Shinjin was, he was like second or third in the UK. Like if Ryan had lost, Shinjin wasn't going to beat this guy. And Shinjin just banged him up because he clearly like never played against good ogres before.
Yeah, I mean, just going back, me and Ryan had this conversation quite recently. It shows how the dynamic of how you play in your local scene versus how you play internationally. And I think that was one of the first times that I saw that, because Sandro his play style was so immaculate. I remember thinking, no one can beat this guy. And then watching Geordie just run through him like he was nothing. And that's because Geordie gets to play him all the time. So he's very familiar. He knows that play style. He knows everything he's going to do. He just ran through him like it was nothing. I remember coming in and seeing Sandro just with his head down and just Geordie just doing what he was doing. And I just remember how strange that felt. And I was wondering if something had happened to Sandro, because it didn't make sense how someone that good can get beaten by something that seemed so basic to us at the time. So yeah, that was our first. That was our first, or my first experience of that. But I mean, you're talking about the finals between Shinjin and Geordie, but the match that was better than that was the semi-finals between Shinjin and Red King. Where I think it was Mishimas versus Ogres. Or was it King? I think it was King. Was it not King and Hayachi?
He was all King. He was all Mishimas then, I think.
Okay. By that point, versus Ogres, and that match was top tier. That match was both of them playing their best, and it could have gone any way. It was really high, impressive Tekken, because I mean, we'd always heard about these Hokage level battles happening in Asia, but we were witnessing one happening right in front of us, and it was really good, because one of the things you like to confirm is, as Ryan said, it's really good to know that what you're doing in your local scene works internationally. And then seeing Shinjin now step up to the plate, and seeing Red King step up to the plate, and them going, bar for bar, backwards and forwards at such a high level match. For me at the time, I was really impressed with Shinjin, because Shinjin was a local guy for us, and he was good. But you don't. There's a saying, king is never recognized in his own village. Not that Shinjin's a king, but my point was I didn't see this. I didn't see the special in Shinjin. I just thought, yeah, he's all right. I didn't see how special he was. But in that match, I got to see the things that we take for granted. I got to see them working and how effective they were. So that was really an eye-opener.
Yeah, no, I knew he was sick. Like, we had been... I think we got a lot closer during that period. We started to travel to each other's place and practice with each other. And I knew, like, when we go to a big tournament, he's going to be a serious threat, because ogres as characters individually are, like, both of them are really, really... They're just really strong characters anyway. But then with all the things he was implementing, and every time I visit him, he'd have something new. You can do this into Waning Moon in the back. Like, he had all these things, like, every time I'd visit him, he'd have something new. And that, for me, is always the sign of a player that's going to go places. Whenever I visit you, you've got something new that you didn't have the other day. Like, why do you have something new? His creative mind was functioning. He was flowing. He was having ideas. He was testing them out in real matches, which is the perfect practice for tournament, because that's the scenario it's going to be. It's going to be under pressure. It's not going to be casually sitting there on training mode with a dummy that doesn't move. It's going to be someone trying to beat you as well. So he would actually practice these new ideas against good players. It wasn't just his average local guys. It was like the best players around him, basically. I think one important thing to note as well is back in those times, he talked about Sandro versus Giordano, and you talked about Giordano versus Shinjin finals and all that, and Red King semis. But one important thing to note is back in that time, tournaments were like first to fives. Red King versus Shinjin was first to 5, best of 9 games. It wasn't a quick thing. It wasn't like these days with TWT just being best of 3 or best of 5. It was first to 5, just in the semis. There wasn't grand finals. It was first to 5. So you were really getting the best players rising in the ranks in this tournament, because you're not going to fluke a first to 5 against a top player. You're not going to. Doesn't matter like what the scenario is. I think first to 5
games and tag take
especially on tag.
Forever.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So it was one of those things where, if someone and also this Red King Shinjin set, I think it was 5-4 the final score, the tally. So there were just so many like sick moments of like raw, like clutch. You got this sick hop kick and won around it in a situation where winning looked impossible. But there's no way to come back from this. What? And just this crazy seesaw matchup. And if you look at a tournament from that perspective, what kind of, like, people say that tournaments are long now, but imagine if every set is like first to 5 when it gets to like top 32 or whatever, how much stamina you would need to go through a tournament. So, when someone is crowned champion at the end of that night, man, they earned that. They got some stamina to go all that way. And I think Shinjin won the finals like 5-0 or something, So to still have that in reserve in the tank after you've gone through this grueling, set of top players, like that, definitely take my hat off to that chap. That was a crazy day.
But it's different times now, though, because I feel those tournaments were cultish, where it's the real players who are trying to find out who's the best. So you run the gauntlet. You put a certain amount of games in front of them. Whereas now, tournaments are more about the spectacle. It's more about the show. So you can't do that. People won't be interested in watching a first to 5 that goes 5-4. I mean, at higher level, if you got two of the best guys in the entire world, yes. But maybe for the finals, they don't want to see that in the semis or the quarterfinals, because it's too long. TOs say they haven't got the time, or spectators won't want to watch for that long. So it's a totally different flavor now. Yeah. Like things have really moved on, or has really evolved or changed with the scene today.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a difficult one where you've got players that play every day, like competitively, or play for a sponsor, and the rules of their battle are being dictated by outside sources. Basically, people that are not involved are basically having a hand in how the tournament goes down, because they'll say, "Hey, we don't want to see a first to 5 in the finals. That's too long. It's boring. Get on with the show." But then when you talk to the players, a lot of the time they do want the longer set, whatever the option for that is, whether it's best of 5 or whatever. So it's just always a difficult conversation. I think one potential solution is to just have, so if you look at that Euro final, or that Euro championship that we went to, that tournament was basically just super experienced Tekken players congregating. It wasn't really about
who's coming to watch that's a fan of the game or wants to support players. It was just, like you were saying, it was almost this very elitist gathering of people trying to work out who the best is, you know? And maybe that needs to come back. Maybe players have to just decide to get together, and if they're interested, if the quest is to work out who the best player is, maybe they could do that. But I feel like, you know, the bigger picture, the professional tours, you know, the money, like all these things, I feel like all the crosshairs are on players to get these things now. It's not about like I'm the best, but I've got nothing to show for it. It's about I think I'm the best, and I'm going to do it under these set of circumstances and win all these things while proving that, you know. And I think back in that time, we were kind of all right with just being the best, and it wasn't about how much money you won. It wasn't about if you got a sponsorship from it. It wasn't about, you know. So very, very different. Just the entire structure of professional fighting games back then was just really, really different.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed with the arcade days is it was very cutthroat, and it wasn't about winning something in terms of money or a prize pool or something. It was just about destroying your opponent. It meant that a lot of the players, the only players you had left were the players who were winning, because you didn't really get anything, and losing was hardcore. It was so horrible to lose a lot in the arcade. So eventually, you just had this supreme pool of talent of players that were just, you know, like winning, and that was kind of all it was. Whereas nowadays, it's open to a lot more people because the rule set is a little bit more lenient in tournaments, and it just allows for a bigger pool of players, which is actually super fun.
How did Evo change competitive fighting games, or how we see competitive fighting games? I mean, do you think that contributes to the shift in priority you're talking about, Ryan?
I think that Evo was the cake. I think the fighting game community was the cake, and Evo came with the sprinkling of the hundreds and thousands. They made it look pretty. They, you know, the glitz and glam. No, I'm serious. Like, Evo was like the spectacle. I mean, I went all the way to America. I wasn't a sponsored player. I didn't have a lot of money, but I flew all the way to America. I saved up my pretty pennies. I was working full time. I saved up my money every month. And when Evo came around, I flew to America because that's the tournament. You know, at some point, you know, not that no other tournament mattered, but it was a big deal to be a part of this event. You know, the first time I went was actually not for Evo there. It was just happening on the same weekend, but I didn't know a lot about it at that time. It was to challenge the Korean champion on Tekken Tag 1. You know, Evo that year, I was actually quite salty, but they ran it on 2 rounds.
What year was it? What year was that?
2003.
Right.
It was 2003, and they ran the tournament on 2 rounds, and you know the global standard was of course 3 rounds, just like it is today. But yeah, so losing under those conditions was quite hard to swallow. You know, obviously to some degree you made mistakes. You know, if you lost whether it was 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, you made mistakes opening the door for the guy to beat you, right? So I had to hold the L, but somewhere in me the person that just wants to have something to complain about was like, but it wasn't 3 rounds, you know, and I always wanted to hold on to that. But yeah, I remember that too. It's Tekken Tag is brutal on 2 rounds if you're playing Mishima mirrors. Oh my god, it's really, really savage. But yeah, I learned a very valuable lesson in that tournament, and that is to accept the rules of the tournament, wherever the rules are, and don't like make excuses for yourself. You know, don't say like, yeah, but I only lost because, you know, that doesn't help you grow, and that doesn't help you learn from what you did wrong in that match. So yeah, that was I was you know, still in my early 20s. I was up and coming in my own way, and yeah, I learned a very valuable lesson.
Be magnanimous. That's what you learn from it. Because
exactly.
That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
That's a very hard pill to swallow.
Grand finals, man, got mugged.
Yeah, because especially when you know that the conditions they've put you under aren't the normal conditions. So it's, I mean, I agree. You should, because part of me thinks salt is always a good thing. You know, nowadays people are, oh, you're salty. But I think
just a pinch,
you need a bit of salt. No, but I think you need a lot. I think that the best players are really bothered by their losses, so they make sure they're going to do something about it. And I think salt is about that. yes, it's how you use that sword. It's how it motivates you. When I'm talking about sword, I don't necessarily mean the whining about it. I mean the fact it bothers you, and then the fact you go and do something about it. So from that perspective, yes. But if the rules are so different to what you're doing every day, it's hard to understand that when you lost to someone under these strange rules, what it means. Because I think, at least from our era, as Ryan had said, it was about being the best. It wasn't about being sponsored. It wasn't about, it was about being the best. And that's why we do our grueling first to five tournaments or first to tens that we'd have offline. We wanted to know that we were better than each other. And then when you go to a tournament, at least the initial impression of a tournament is that the tournament is supposed to find out or determine who the better player is. And I think that's gone now. I don't think tournaments is about finding out who the better player is. Tournaments now is about finding out who's the best player under those conditions. I don't think it necessarily guarantees maps to who the best player is, because there's too many things that could go wrong. There's too many, what pools you're in. Don't get me wrong, everyone's susceptible to the same rules. Everyone has, you put in random pools, or if you're seeded or whatever, and depending on who won in that tree versus who you fight in this tree. So I think everyone has the same rules forced on them. But coming out at the end of the day, you could have taken a path where you didn't fight someone in your community that normally beats you. So if you didn't play that person, does that mean, what does that mean? Does that mean that you're the best? No. Or does it mean you're the best on that day? To me, tournaments are, it is a pattern that lives side by side with who is the best. I'm not sure if I'd say it necessarily determines who the best is. Not necessarily.
I mean, I think there's such a thing of like being better in a specific place, in a specific time. I think being better overall from just one tournament, I don't think that's not enough. I think, multiple tournament meetings, I think then you start to, see something unfolding. But, just having one tournament and then you go and you lose the best of three or whatever, I don't think that's definitive enough to then say I'm better or I'm not as good as this guy. I've definitely been people in tournaments in best of threes when they were better than me. That's definitely happened. There's no way I'm better than this guy, but I won the best of three because it's just 2 games, but I'm not better than this guy. So I think with the longer formats, it was a bit more that, you could get a clearer, you could paint a clearer picture from what would happen in a tournament where there were more games,
Should we move on to Tekken 4 days? So I want to talk about the shift between Tekken Tag and Tekken 4 and kind of, beta Tekken 4. That was what was that about? Because, I mean, most people have no experience of that.
Ezzy, you were the one who actually played this. I didn't get to play this. This was the version
Yeah, a few of us from London went to, I can't remember where it was quite far. A few of us, but still in London, a few of us went down. We heard about the beta testing for Tekken 4, and we went down and we played it. And there was a few differences. Dean Earwicker, for example, before he got his name Steve. Kazuya having Jin's forward 1+2. That was with Kazuya first of all. I think I mentioned this last time. Howrang having Jin's parry. Jin was nowhere to be seen at this point in time. I think the game was very peeled back. I'm not sure if you remember Tekken 4, but there's like an underground parking stage. And in the final game, there's some pillars and there's some cars parked around, and there's like a slope, but they've put a fence in front of the slope. Whereas on the beta, you could go down there. That fence wasn't there, but there was some horrible infinite combos down there, and I think that's why they blocked it off in the final game. And I just remember, I remember how different it was from Tekken, because it doesn't play like Tekken Tag or Tekken 3 at all. It doesn't play like that game at all. They introduced the sidewalk. They introduced walls.
Wall push,
which was really difficult to break. You had very small window to break it. But the beta sort of showed us the direction of which Tekken was going.
It didn't have wall tech, did it?
No, it didn't have wall tech. No, it didn't have wall tech either.
He had disgusting wall combos as well.
Yeah, and so I remember it being just a very, very harsh game. And to go from a game that was infinite to go to walls, and especially from Tekken Tag, where backdash reigned supreme, it felt like you were so boxed in and you were forced to fight. Now I remember, Cobra Commander's not with us. He's not with us. He's, R.I.P. Cobra Commander's not. He's not here. But I remember him using law, and one of the things with Cobra Commander's law is he liked to press buttons. He was, law had at this time they still had 8-frame jabs, and you still had quick characters and stuff like that. I remember law being so much of a problem because you couldn't get away from anything that he was doing. They'd really toned down juggles in that game as well, because I think that was one of the things that they'd heard people didn't like. So they really toned down juggles. So ground game was king, and law was just really dominant. And that's when they introduced his 1, 2, 3, which I think was -1 or -2 on block. So law was a severely big problem, and it was so strange because on Tekken, on previous Tekkens, law wasn't really a problem. Like they had different health sizes. So law, although he was quick on something like Tekken Tag, he had a smaller life bar. So once you hit him, the guy, he dies quite quickly. Whereas now, he didn't really do much. Whereas on Tekken 4, it was really he was really quite dominant. So I remember that from the beta testing. There was a few of us that went there. I think we went once or twice, and that's the direction that we saw that they were trying to take Tekken in.
Ryan, I kind of wanted to ask you, as a Mishima player, what did you think of Tekken 4?
Yeah, like as you were saying, it was really different to everything before that. I found it quite difficult to adapt at the time. I remember trying to play Kazuya, but he was such a different character, like Electric didn't launch unless it was a counter hit. I think down forward 1-4-2 was a, I can't remember if that was a normal. I think that was a combo.
It was only on crouch. Yeah,
it only comboed if they crouched. And just so much of his generic moveset was different, and it was really hard to find out. Like, it was so hard to work out how you're supposed to play this character, But he had really good things, Wall Splat 1-1-2, like he had really, really strong things. But he wasn't a standout character on Tekken 4. So a lot of the battles ended up over time being quite uphill, whether it was against Steve, whether it was against Jin, whether it was against Nina. I mean, there were just so many good characters on Tekken 4. So I did try Heihachi for a bit because he was my other go-to Mishima. I didn't like the Jin style. I didn't like the way he played. Heihachi was really attractive to me because I wanted to. I liked the idea of just frame house sweeps. There's kind of like a second life if you're good enough. You get a second life, and I quite like that a lot. So I started using Heihachi. But at some point, I felt he kind of just didn't add up to, Jin, who was like way up there. So yeah, I think my experience is, a little bit tainted because I had quite a negative experience with Kazuya. I did manage to still win. Like, I won one of the European tournaments. I got quite lucky, I got to be honest. But yeah, that was but that was really late in Tekken 4's life. So for the most part, my Tekken 4 experience was all negative. There was a little light at the end of the tunnel, but I had suffered so much leading up to that because it's quite hard to go from being, like the champion or, someone who's looked up to and, recognized for being really good on the previous version. Then in the very next game, you're breath. Like, you can't be, you can't be any of the guys that you used to be. So it's very humbling, but it also shows you like, wow, the character is big. Your character selection is massive. It's not just you're so good that whoever you pick, you can make it work. No, you have to respect that the character choice is really important. What you do on the character select screen decides your future, And I think for me, that was very humbling, and it made me appreciate, everything a bit more. Having lost a lot, it was definitely learned a lot that time.
Yeah, like at this point, I went to university when Tekken 4 came out. So I was actually like out of the competitive scene for like however many years, but basically for the entirety of Tekken 4's lifespan, I just played it on my own. I played it a bit when it first came out. I was there for the arcade launch of this game, and this Tekken 4, when it first came out, it had time release characters. So, like, Nina wasn't in the original character select, and then 1 week, Nina would appear in random select. If you wanted to get Nina, you had to try and time her in character select, and then she'd be out for real the next week. And people be like, "Oh my god, I wonder what this character's going to be like." And there was purple, there was Violet, just blatantly purple. There was Jin, and I remember everyone getting Jin the first time, being like, "What the fuck is going on with Jin?" Because he was basically Devil Jin before that, right? Like what we know now as Devil Jin, the playstyle, laser scraper, electric, all that stuff. Jin was that. This was the first time we'd seen like karate Jin. Like, what is going on? Yeah, he's sick though.
Hoodie was sick, innit? Yeah, that's everyone talked about that hoodie.
His hoodie comes off.
Yeah, no, I remember the visuals for that as well. I remember seeing a poster of just seeing Jin standing there in the hoodie, thinking, all right, fine. Because as you said, they were doing time release, and Jin wasn't in the first batch, and everyone had got so used to Mishimas because of their dominance on Tekken Tag, and then Jin's coming out, and he finally comes out, and they purposefully allowed you to only wave dash twice. You can only wave dash twice.
What?
Yeah, you can only do it twice, and then it stops. You couldn't. But they'd put something in to stop you from wave dashing more than twice. Of course, he had this hook fist thing, electric wind hook fist. What's that?
Yep.
Just hook fist. It was just this thing where he just punched sideways.
Yeah, and then he had his stature sweep. Like, it was just so different, and he felt so limited compared to everything that we were so used to. And I remember going through a phase, because this is past our Tekken Tag experience now, so I knew how to use Mishimas, and I had my confidence up. And I remember everyone saying how rubbish Jin was, and this is before the Just Frames came out. This is when Jin was time release. And I remember thinking to myself, there's no way Namco's poster boy is rubbish now. There's no way Namco would do that. They couldn't do that to this character. And I remember playing him, and he had this 2-1. Then we eventually saw he had this parry, but he just didn't. There wasn't anything special about that character. He was just very different and a bit mashy. Like, he had 2-1, 2-1, and it was just a bit mashy, but it wasn't the Tekken that we were used to.
He had these strings, and when you would use them and just be like, oh, this is trash. Like, it would be like 2-1, 4-4, and you'd just be like, but this is bollocks. This character looks like he's just made to do stupid karate things which don't have any competitive purpose.
I remember 1-2-3 or 1-2-4 being a proper mix-up.
Yeah, and it was very hard to get right. Like, it just wasn't the Tekken that we knew, especially once you're used to the Mishimas, and Kazuya was in there. So Kazuya had Kazuya had some flavor of Mishima fighting style. This Jin guy just had, it was just totally different. So it was hard, a similar experience to Ryan. It was hard to work out what's their vision for this character? How are you supposed to play this character? And I remember just being really stubborn, thinking there's no way they would have done this to this guy. And I remember, I think it was Shinjin again. He had said to me, because Jin had his laser scraper, the unblockable one. Yeah. But he had, if you charged it fully, it was unblockable, but it was slow. So I was trying to think, are you supposed to use that in combo? Like, I don't understand it because it's just too slow. You can't use it as on the ground. You can't use it I didn't understand it. And Shinjin said to me, I've seen a really fast version of that where it's unblockable, but it looks like it's instant. I just thought, I totally dismissed him. And there was little things that
this also happened back in the day, though, right? This is classic, like, old school fighting game stuff. Is that someone would just be like, I've seen you can pick up the rock in Chun-Li's stage, Street Fighter 2, and you're like, oh yeah. Like, there was so much nonsense flying around.
I remember, someone told me, you see them 5 throws you're doing, you can get out of them. You know, I was like, what? You can get out of them? Yeah, it's not guaranteed. I was like, nah. I was all screwing. I got to change character. King's not good anymore. You can escape them. Like, I was just fretting. But yeah, like, there were, because you'd never seen it. And there was no guide to teach you, you know? Yeah. And so word of mouth meant a lot, man. There's a guy that came down, some mysterious dude, who escaped it every time. You know, the rumors would just get crazier and crazier.
So I remember Jin being, I just remember it just being difficult to accept this version of Jin.
The initial impression of Jin was that he was rubbish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was trash.
Yeah, because
look at him.
he had
How
no
ugly
flair.
he is.
He had no flair. He had no flamboyance. It was just 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 4, 1-2-3. It was very basic strings with zero movement, high damage.
Combos, no real combos.
Yeah, exactly. High damage. So it was hard to see why he's good. It was hard to see. Like, is this it? Is that all there is?
Yeah.
Of course, circle back 1 and 3 to throw them when you get bored of the other moves. But there was, I don't know, there wasn't much going on.
When did people start figuring out like that Jin was ridiculous? So
for a while, Tekken 4 was out. I can't remember how many time release characters had been out before people realized about just frames. I think quite early they must have realized about Paul
Demo Man.
Because I think on the arcade they had the sticker of the moves.
And they told us about it.
I think they told us about the Demo Man one, and it was a while before people started realizing there's these timing based aspect to these moves that give them some sort of upgrade.
Right.
And once Jin's came out, it just leveled everything. It leveled everything. He didn't look any sexier because he was doing the same nonsense. But once that just frame became a problem. Some characters couldn't, like against Kuma couldn't, like you could just do it and Kuma couldn't really sidestep it. So it was just free on Kuma. Once you hit people with it, it was a guaranteed launch. And it didn't take people too long to get the timing down. These things, the just frames in Tekken 4 were frame perfect. I think they've relaxed them now a lot, so they're a lot easier now. But they were frame perfect in that game. But it didn't take too long before everyone could do it. And then Jin became the most popular. It was like a boy band. It was popularity. It just everywhere it was Jin. That's all you were seeing. Like everywhere, everyone had a Jin. And it got to the point where unless you picked Jin, it was really hard to compete because Jin was so dominating in that game.
Yeah.
So as soon as the just frame laser scraper got figured out, it was the Jin party.
It was Jin's party. Everything was Jin. Everywhere was Jin.
Also, people didn't realize when like the game came out, like they didn't realize 2-1 was plus on block.
Trying to press buttons afterwards.
And the 1-2 was also plus on block. And you had to sidestep them in different ways. And it was almost impossible to sidestep. And so because the guess in that game was do a button or sidewalk, Jin just did 2-1 on block, and if you sidewalked, he laser scrapered you. But laser scraper did more damage than anything else, like any other combo in the game, pretty much, because it did 80 something. 80, it did like 80 something. No other character was probably cracking 60, apart from like capoeiras from weird shit. It did tons of damage. And so all he did 2-1. If you sidestep, he did laser cannon, and laser scraper, and if you press buttons back, he sidestepped and either did 2-1 or
laser
scraper. Or laser scraper, and that was it. That was the guess. The whole thing.
And he had all the other
2-1, 1-2, and laser scraper, and wall push 2-1, laser scraper.
And he had all the other stuff as well. Like he still had like Hell Sweep, Demon Paw. Like he still had the other 6 stuff as well if he wanted to, while standing 2.
Totally unpunishable parry.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that parry!
Wasn't his Hell Sweep like -12 or something? Like
something like that. Yeah.
Definitely didn't stagger block, but.
It didn't give a juggle. It gave him like a down and 4, which flipped them over for a semi-free down and 4. Like the combos in that game were so ugly.
No, but he had. Hang on, you're saying that, but he had something. There was something with that game where if they tech rolled, they could tech roll facing backwards, and that's why the flip over mattered.
You got 2 down 4s after sweep, right?
Well, you do one, you do a sweep, you do down and 4, that flips them, and they had to stay down because if they got up, you get laser scraper in their back or something like that. It was ridiculous. It was
remember you could move before the round on that one. You could like start positioning yourself.
Actually,
remember that
was a good thing. That was one of their innovations about trying to make the action happen while the announcer's announcing the game. And you had that weird the backdash thing that people
do. The shadow step.
Yeah. They tried Tekken 4.
But yeah,
they tried.
Yeah, it's an interesting game. Like, it's not good, but I think it's really fun if you play Paul versus Kazuya. I don't think any other matchup in that game is fun. I don't think any other matchup at all. But that matchup is really fun.
So Tekken 4, in terms of like the hierarchy of UK players, you know, there was a certain point where, like, I remember Absolution in Luton, 2002. It was just basically Starscream, like, up here, and then everyone else just like way down. You know, like Starscream was just head and shoulders above, and you know, he mained Jin, but he could beat people with Heihachi, with Law. Like, he just had like a collection of characters he could just throw out and get wins with. What was all that about, Ezzy, man? Why do you think you were so dominant on Tekken 4? What was that?
I think part of it is I had the head start with Jin, because nobody liked him, so everyone stayed away from him really early. And I was really stubborn, thinking there's no way this character looks this sick and he's not good. So I remember sticking with him. And I think it was time. I do think there was a period where a lot of the UK guys from Tekken Tag 1 backed away from Tekken 4. They just didn't put in the effort because they really didn't like it. Whereas for me, it wasn't that I liked it, but there wasn't anything else. I think there was a time when we'd go to the arcades and Tekken Tag 1 was still more popular than Tekken 4. But I remember really wanting Tekken 4 to be good. And I think just because of how much time I put into it, and I was still playing Tekken Tag 1, so I still had the reflexes, plus I learned the system. And there was just little things. Also, Shinjin moved to United States at that time. And Shinjin came back with a pocket pool, and he could do, because everyone was doing Demolition Man. What was Demolition Man? The one from down 1.
Oh,
down one for
Tile
2.
Smasher, and then
and then doing the just frame from there. But Shinjin was the first person to make Demolition Man to do the proper just frame from it and use it in game. And I remember having this feeling, thinking, if this guy's doing this, I'm learning every just frame. Once again, that's part of my ego, but I couldn't, and this was really early on, the fact that he could use it in game meant these things are accessible. If these things, it's possible. So I remember having a period where I thought, I need to learn everyone's just frame just to see what it means. And I remember having a lot of battles, because everyone tests you when you're really good or tries to call you out. And a lot of people were saying I was only winning because I was picking Jin. And I remember feeling a certain way about that, thinking, no, I'm actually good. So part of that was the reason that I started traveling around all the other characters. It was sort of a confirmation of me forcing, no, it's not just Jin, it's anyone that I pick. And that was good in the sense of it helped me learn all the characters, but it was also, it helped. It made me just egotistical. It was really an ego boost, knowing that I can go around the board and still be quite dominant. And then it was before too long, I got the same call that you got. There was one guy that they had a tournament in central London in Burger King. I'm in my house minding my own business, and then I get a call from someone saying, there's this guy, he's come from Uzbekistan somewhere, and he's battering everyone. He's got 40 wins, he's dominating. And he's using Jin. Ez, calm down. You need to dead him. So I was like, all right, let's go down. So I went down. The Red Sea opens up once I arrived. Let's start Starscream play. So I traveled to the front. But my story ends differently. Yeah, so I played him and I battered him. And he was really shocked because I think he had by the time I had arrived, he had almost 60 something wins. He was just battering everyone. No one could touch him. And once I got there, I played him. And I can't remember I think he was from US. He was a guy from US. I can't remember his name now. And then, as it was back in those days, someone invited him to a house session, and then we played tons of games, and then exchanged stories and tech. So it was really quite interesting for me back then. And also because I was so dominant in the UK, it got to a point where people from other countries were checking for me. I had guys from Belgium, guys from Greece. Guys from Spain, Starscream's the one. There's a guy in UK called Starscream. He's the one. So that was me having to learn that, yes, you might be good in your scene, but there's international guys now that you have to see how well you are, how well you do against them. So that was an interesting time.
I remember you winning the European Championship.
T5 apparently his name, or Terminator 5, T5.
Is it T5? It was
T Arrow
5 because he had 5 T's in his name. T. So yeah. I remember.
I remember you winning the European Championship on Tekken 4 in the Netherlands, Euro 5 or something, and you played this guy called Rank Shiba in the finals. Was it Jin Mirror? No, finals?
So I think by that time I was going around the houses of the characters as well.
Okay.
And it's Amsterdam. So, or was it Rotterdam? I think it's Amsterdam.
Rotterdam.
Is it Rotterdam?
Yeah.
So I'm in holiday mood. All my friends are there, all the Tekken guys. And I remember not paying much attention to the tournament. So I remember feeling confident enough that if I haven't heard of you, you're probably not going to beat me.
Okay.
And I remember doing that. And I remember just having so much jokes and so much fun in that tournament with my friends outside of the tournament. And then it got to a point where I'm playing some guy called Rank Shiba. I've never heard of this guy before. And Ben Mishima at the time said to me, this guy, Rank Shiba, he's quite good. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll beat him anyway. And I remember going the Jin Mirror. I think it was the Jin Mirror, or maybe I picked Law. And back then it was first to 3 for this. I didn't realize it was the finals because I was on another vibe. I was just enjoying my friends. I didn't know it was actually the finals. And it was me versus Rank Shiba. I picked, I think it was the Jin Mirror, and he just destroyed me the first 2 games. And I have this weird existential moment where I'm sitting back thinking, how is this guy battering me? So I couldn't touch him. And that was so weird for me because, especially for a guy I've never even heard of. Like normally, like you sort of know who the guys are. They're up there. I've never even heard this guy. And I looked over to him, and he's speaking Spanish to one of his friends. And he sort of like, his friend says something, and he sort of gives his friend this sort of weird, like, don't worry, I've got this. Like, this guy's no one. This sort of weird nod. I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this guy thinks I'm a dickhead. This guy thinks I'm an idiot. He thinks I'm anything. And then this very, very weird moment I'll never forget. You guys remember Mortal Kombat where, I can't remember who it was, Ed Boon or something. He used to come in and say, Toasty, and then just disappear. And there was a cheat they had to do. One of our friends, his name is JRX, he was playing another random game. He came in like that, exactly like that guy. Ez, why are you losing to this guy? And just disappeared like that. And for some reason,
this is the best thing is that JRX, the guy who originally introduced you to competitive Tekken, the first guy that wanted player 2 side against you in play to win, he comes up and he's just like, why are you losing, my son? And he just disappeared.
Materialized into nothing.
I remember sitting back and everything just went in slow motion. I was like, this is so true. Like, why am I losing to this guy? And then on the character select screen, I went to Paul. I don't know why. I went to Paul. And then I proceeded to jab this guy to death. And I'm not sure where these videos are.
I've got it. I've got the finals.
I jabbed this guy to death for the next consecutive 3 games. Jabs, nothing else. There was no, when I say jabbed him to death, I mean literally, he couldn't get around the jabs. So, to go up to him, jab, 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 sidewalk, jab, 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 jab. His energy was just going like that. KO, all right, round 2, jab, jab, wait, jab, 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 jab. All the way through. And then I finally won. And I was thinking, that was difficult. Who's next? And they were like, there is no one next. You've won the tournament. I was like, oh.
Yeah. You're an idiot, man. Oh my God.
This is
man
such an
Ezzy. Grand finals.
Such an Ezzy thing to do as well. I remember in a tournament, I think it was the Tekken 5. I think it was in Tekken 5. He was playing someone and he won the first match pretty easily. And the guy scrapped out the next match with some nonsense or whatever. And the third match is sort of quite close. And then he just starts going back turned and fox stepping with Rang, and he just blatantly starts taking the piss. And wins anyway, and it's quite close, but he's won whilst he's just been mocking this guy like relentlessly. He's just been, clearly just like trying to style it out the whole time. And everyone's like, well, another one of these points, I mentioned this on the Hwarang one, I think off air, but like where everyone's like, oh my God, Starscream, such level confidence. How can you do that in tournament? I just went up to him and I was like, it was first to 3, didn't you, Ezzy? just like, don't tell anyone. Like,
oh man! I think I remember that. I remember that as well. I had no idea. Wow. So yeah, I mean, because I spoke to Rank Sheba. Well, it's a while ago because I think he moved on to either World of Warcraft or something. He messaged me on Facebook. He's like, do you remember me, Rank Sheba? I was like, yeah, like I remember, like everyone remembers you. But yeah, no, it was that was my I can't remember where, because that was in the middle of Tekken 4 timeline. I don't think that was near the end. That was like in the middle, and it continued after that. But yeah,
the thing is, like, because the scene got split so much, because this was the only time when a new Tekken didn't kill the old one.
Yeah,
because basically people still kept playing Tag 1. And it really it chopped the scene like totally in half. People who went to Tekken 4, people who went with and the thing is that like Tekken 4 Tekken 4 actually probably started to die faster than like it stayed alive less than Tag 1 was towards the end. Like, but it was also that like Ezzy was still too dominant in the UK and no one was really challenging him. Like, but it wasn't like Ryan to that extent, because like Ryan would just beat you with Mishima's, but Ezzy would beat you with your own character because he was a dickhead.
And like I say, it just fed into my ego. And we'll get to Tekken 5 and the I can beat.
But what about Tekken 4? Tekken 4 though, and the UK champion.
So is it? I can't hear you. Is it time to talk about Tekken 5? Did you say? Is that what you said? I think it's time to.
Is it time to talk about Tekken
5? Oh, we can talk about it. Let's talk about it.
So there's a saying in the UK Tekken community, and it's for the grand, and it's when everything's on the line. This was in like. So there was Tekken 4, the Tekken 4 National Console Tournament, and it was for £1,000, which was like a lot back in the day. Like I said, like fighting game tournaments didn't have prizes apart from like pot, and that wasn't that much. I remember, I think I entered it. I can't remember who I lost to, but. For some reason, he went up against like a Nottingham lay player, one of 2 Nottingham lay brothers, and he decided to pick. Did you decide to pick Steve against him?
I just didn't pick Jin. I didn't pick Jin, and I think once again, this is one of those. It was one of those moments where. So this was early on because the Nationals was quite early. I think this was quite promotional to the console launch, and. I remember they did a series of regionals before they did the nationals, and I dominated the regionals. I remember I won like a Jin statue, I won a TV, so I was quite dominant then. And then they did the nationals held in London, and it was sort of, as far as everyone was concerned, because of how dominant I was, there wasn't going to be much. Starscream was going to win, and. There was a Lay player. Lay was nonsense in that game, mind you.
Lay was trash in that game.
Nonsense in that game. And I picked Steve, which, to be fair, I should have won with Steve because Steve was quite a beast in that game anyway. And I remember I can't remember his name, begins with W. He screamed to me. He saw me on the selection screen and he screamed, Ezzy, pick Jin.
Oh, yeah, shit. What? Why that?
Was it what? Not why that. It was someone else.
No. His
name begins with W. Anyway, I totally ignored him. I totally ignored him, and I picked Steve. And then I lost. And I remember being in shock. And that's the one that we had a guy called Iron Mike, who was from Manchester at the time. And he picked Jin, and he won that. And I think he got flown out somewhere to go and represent UK. I think there was like a European next stage of that. And it became a mockery, and the saying was born for the grand, because, you know, for the £1,000, you know, what that's what's on the line, the £1,000, you know, for the grand. And I fumbled it. I remember being so aggravated because Iron Mike won that. And Chinese Whispers, the story became Starscream got perfected by Iron Mike in the final, and I never played him. So yeah, it was quite an eye-opening time for me to lose like that. Like it teaches you don't play with your food. Like in a tournament, it's serious. Don't play. It's not first to tens where you might have 2 or 3 games to try out a character. Like when it's tournament and it's first to twos or first to threes, it's legit. It's serious. You know, take it as serious as it is.
And this was because there was no standard stuff about how you run tournaments back then. They would run in random ways. Like I think this was first to 2 game single elimination. Like even first to 2 games.
I think it was first to 2 games. I think it was first to 2 games, but it was single elimination. And you're right, there was no tournament format done by professionals. And I remember we always had an issue with how the tournaments were run by the big companies, because they had no insight on what the community was used to. If it was one of the community members running tournaments, they sort of know what the format is, how many rounds and all that. But the tournament organizers that came from Namco or came from Sony, they weren't familiar with how these things were done. So yeah, their format was whatever they felt like at the time, whatever would make it in the space of time that they had, you know.
I think the heats were 1 game. I think the heats leading up to the finals. I remember Virgin Megastore holding a number of heats. I think you winning all of those is when you won like the TV and everything. But I think these heats were, I can't remember, was it like 1 game on 4 rounds or some insane thing like that. But yeah, I remember those Virgin Megastore heats. You know, they were each like qualifiers that were run around the country.
Yeah, I think you're right though. That was pretty early. I think that was early on in because it was connected to console release. Yeah. After that, as he basically ran things, there was a Greek player called Ionica who came along. Who was It was sick, but
he used to.
He played
cross-handed. You know, he couldn't hold the joystick with his left hand. He used to hold it with his right, so he had to cross over to press the buttons like that, and that was his play style.
He was really good, man.
He was.
He got like 4th at Evo that year, Tekken 4. Got like 4th or something.
With Julia Chang.
Yeah, not with Jin.
All right.
Yeah. And then.
Cool. So, do you guys want to move on to Tekken 5? I mean, I think it's quite late for you guys. So, do you want to do a part 2, or do you want to continue with this?
I've got a really bad headache, so I've had to turn my video off. So part 2 for me would be better, but if you guys want to continue, then I'll just stick it up here, but only audio though.
I hear you.
I don't know. Up to you guys, because if we do part 2, maybe we can get mine
That's a good
back.
idea.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, I'm just super. Yeah, sorry.
And here I can see the rise of Cobra Commander Tekken 5 Arcade, so it'd be good to actually have him for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
All right.
Okay.
All right,
cool.
All right. Well, guys, This is a to be continued. We're gonna leave it at Tekken 4 days, and next time we're gonna pick up with Tekken 5 Arcade, and then probably go through to T6BR.
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right.
Sounds
good. Thanks so much for making the time, everyone. And yeah, chat, thanks for tuning in, and we'll carry this on next time.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Take care, guys. See you later, man.
Yes.
Bye.